Hello, sixth graders. It's Mr. Yardell. It's great to be back with you on this glorious day. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well. I really do. All right, it's back. The joke of the day is back. Here we go. What did the duck say to the clown? What did the duck say to the clown? I'll give you 5 seconds to think of your response. Your 5 seconds starts now. All right, your time is up. What did the duck say to the clown? You quack me up. Hilarious. I'm sure I just quacked you up too. Alrighty, enough of that. So, in thinking back to a recent learning activity you completed on the economics of slavery by using the circular flow model cotton and clothing, you were asked to create a video response based on this circular flow model. Some of you were spot on. Some of you got a little bit confused. So I want to take a moment to explain how the circular flow model works. So we're going to start right here with the southern plantation where cotton is grown. Remember, slaves were the ones that were picking the cotton on these southern plantations. And if you think about a cause or causes of the Civil War, slavery was definitely one of the top causes of the Civil War. And so when you think about that cotton is grown in the South because it's a longer growing season. The slaves would pick the cotton, and once it was picked, ultimately the owner of the plantation would make money by selling it to clothing factories. Some of those clothing factories were in the northern part of the US. Remember, the northern part of the US is fighting against the Confederacy. Remember the Union versus the Confederates, the North versus the South. And so, yes, some of that cotton that was picked in the South by slaves did end up in clothing factories in the North. Okay, so once the cotton plantation owner sold that cotton to clothing factories, that individual would make money. Okay, the northern clothing factory, or any clothing factory for that matter, would make clothing out of the cotton, sell it to individuals like us as consumers, and make money by selling it to consumers. We are consumers when we go into a store and buy something. So if I'm going to go buy anything, okay, we're the consumer. And so if you think about it, people in the North and the South obviously were purchasing or buying clothing. That clothing was made at clothing factories, some in the North, some in the South. But if you think deep down into it, that cotton eventually came from somewhere. During the time of the Civil War, it was coming from southern plantations. And on those plantations, remember, were the slaves that were picking the cotton. All right, let's move ahead. So today we're going to focus on, in this video, Home of the Brave and looking at and analyzing the Civil War map. And so I'm going to scroll ahead in our online textbook. And if you want to do this with me, you may. You don't have to. But I'm going to read this section to you titled Home of the Brave. And then we're going to focus on the map that's on the following page. So, Home of the Brave. By the fall of 1860, many Minnesotans were turning their attention to politics. In November, they joined with voters, only white men at the time, in other northern states to elect Abraham Lincoln President of the United States. No southern states had voted for Lincoln. Southerners believed his election marked the beginning of the end. To them, Lincoln's victory signaled the end of the Southern way of life, a way of life that depended on slavery. This was a turning point in the nation's history. So think about it from the Southern plantation owner's perspective. Once Lincoln was elected to become the next president, the 16th president in the fall of 1860, their mindset was, oh my gosh, if he's elected, what if he ends slavery? Who am I going to have to pick cotton on my large plantation? I can't do this by myself. So that was their concern. As a result of Lincoln's victory, Southern states seceded, in other words, to withdraw from a country. They declared themselves separate from the United States and formed their own country known as the Confederate States of America. President Lincoln announced that it was not legal for the United States to split in two. The Confederates did not back down. On April 12th of 1861, Confederate forces fired on U.S. troops stationed at Fort Sumter in South Carolina. The North and the South, or the Union and the Confederacy, were now at war. Both sides immediately began building up armies, with each state expected to provide a share of the soldiers. Minnesota contributed a volunteer regiment of 1,009 men. It was made up of soldiers from St. Anthony, St. Paul, and other nearby towns. The 1st Minnesota Volunteer Infantry Regiment, the first of many regiments from Minnesota, trained at Fort Snelling. And on a side note, Minnesota was the first state to offer troops, Union troops, okay, to fight in the Civil War of any state, of any Union state. And if you think about it, when we think about the 1st Minnesota Volunteer Infantry Regiment, think about Soldier's Heart. Is there a character within that book that volunteered himself and ultimately joined the 1st Minnesota Volunteer Infantry Regiment? And did that person train at Fort Snelling? Yeah, Charlie Goddard. Okay, that's where the historical part comes into play when we think about the book, historical fiction. That part of the story is 100% truthful. Charlie Goddard was part of the 1st Minnesota Volunteer Infantry Regiment. All right, so let's take a look at the map. So the map on page 8.10 is kind of unique. Over on the left-hand side, I can click on different numbers and it will only show me or highlight different parts of the map. So what I'm clicking on is these states are the Union states, even these ones in gray, and we'll talk more about these gray states in a moment. When I click on number 2, these are the territories that belong to the Union. So these are territories that are not quite yet officially states. 3 just represents the 11 Confederate states in the South. And number 4, these are the 5 Union states that were part, of course, of the Union, but they still allowed slavery. Whereas the rest of these Union states that are more in the darker blue, they did not allow slavery. So right now, I want you to stop the video, and what you're going to complete is an exit ticket based on this map, okay? And I'm going to actually pull up the entire map. This map, along with the reading from Home of the Brave. If you need to go back into the online textbook, I would encourage you just to focus on page 8.09 and 8.10 because that's obviously where the questions to the exit ticket, will be coming from. If you need to rewatch this video, I would encourage you to do that as well. So again, focus on this map and focus on the section Home of the Brave. All right, 6th graders, you're the best. Take care and have a fantastic day.